Hi, I'm Mike Cerrone with MastermindAgent.com, and welcome to the Top Agent Business Plan Review with Carin Nguyen. On today's webinar, we get a rare opportunity to see inside the business plan of one of the top agents in the nation. Carin Nguyen is with real estate in Goodie, Arizona, a suburb of Phoenix. She has been an agent for 10 years. Carin is a true entrepreneur who's been able to flex and adjust with her changing market. In 2008, during the Great Recession, it hit Phoenix hard. Property values fell by 50% or more in many areas. Sellers were upside down and the market stalled out. But inside every great calamity lies a great opportunity. Most agents were frozen with fear and mentally shut down. But Carin surveyed the landscape and noticed an opportunity in bank sales. She put her traditional business on hold and dove into REOs. She quickly learned everything she could, established relationships with banks, surrounded herself with smart people, and built a super successful business. In 2011, Carin closed 896 transactions worth $78 million, ranking her in the top 100 agents in the nation by the Wall Street Journal and Real Trends. Then, in late 2012, the real estate market started to recover. Traditional sales started happening again as prices stabilized and they started to rise. Carin noticed that the changing market was occurring and modified her approach. Now let's look inside the 2014 business plan of one of the sharpest business people in the nation. I'm honored to introduce Carin Nguyen. Welcome to the webinar, Carin.
Hi, Mike. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm very excited about what we're going to talk about and the ability to share with everyone else, so thank you again.
Carin, this is going to be fantastic. Thanks again for sharing your plan, and let's go ahead and jump right in.
Great, thanks. So the first couple of slides that I'm going to go to actually touch on the vision piece and why I set the goals the way that I did. I had to get very clear. Number one, I have a team, so I have goals for our team, and obviously those have to get broken down on a per agent basis within the team. But I had to also be very clear about why I wanted to go the direction that I want to go. And so the first couple of slides that we're going to go through actually touch on the why, because that's a giant piece, and really at the end of the day, that's what's going to help motivate me and drive me and keep me going every day through the grind. And so the first piece is just a general vision statement, and basically it's stating that I want to grow my business and launch a third business. I do have two businesses because I own a brokerage, and then I also run the real estate team, so those are two separate entities. I want to have financial freedom and maximize my most precious commodity, which is time. I'm not reactive to the world around me, and I operate with a laser focus to hit my goals. I break my goals down, track and measure them, and adjust when needed. I stay on task and schedule so I have more time at the end of my day, and I spend this time engaged with my family. So if you notice something also about this slide, I rewrote this vision a couple of times because I had it in the future tense, saying I want to, I am, I will be, and so I changed that the way that I want it to read by the time I get to the end of 14, how it should read, and hopefully, not hopefully, I will have accomplished all these goals. And so that's why it reads that way in the present tense. The next one here is the personal vision. For me, because I am a mother of four, I have been guilty many times of checking my phone, just doing multitasking. We've been taught that multitasking is this great thing, and now in the last couple of years it's been brought to light that it's not such a great thing. And engagement is a big goal for me in 2014. So when I say I'm present here on this slide, it means I'm going to actually be present and engaged in the moment, not just physically present. And so this vision reads, I'm a present and loving mother whose children love and respect. I know what my husband's goals and desires are, and I encourage and support those every single day. He knows without question the depth of my love and commitment to him and our family. I am aware and in touch with my parents' daily activities and needs. They know the extent of my love and gratitude for them and all the sacrifices they've made for me.
Carin, I think this is really an awesome plan. I've noticed that you're incorporating a lot of concepts of your family into your business. Was that done on purpose?
It was, because I think we've, too, in the last, well, I won't speak for the masses, I'll speak for myself personally, but in the last several years, I've really become aware that we generally make separate goals, or I've made separate goals, personal goals and business goals, and we usually start with one set of goals, business goals, and then we hope that the business goals can align with family, and I think that's kind of backwards. And so I've started more with the family goals and said, well, what do I want to see with my family, and then make the business goals align with those goals. So they definitely do talk to each other for sure.
It's awesome.
So on to the professional vision. My key words this year are execution and consistency. And I think these two things will make or break me here. If I can stick with these two words, I will have undoubtedly hit all the goals and have a very successful year. And I just made a little note that lack of consistency will rob me of my dreams. And so the professional side, as I mentioned, I have a team. So I have a team of 19 professionals consisting of 12 skilled top talent salespeople and 7 indispensable support admin who live out our core values every day. I have had a positive impact on their quality of life and support them in accomplishing their goals. Again, looking back at the end of 14, this is how it will read. This is what we will have accomplished.
How many team members do you currently have?
So right now on the team we have 11. So we have a growing spurt that we're going to accomplish here in 14. We have some recruiting that we need to do.
So you almost plan to double your staff.
Yeah, almost double in size. Strictly on the Salesforce, we're perfect on the admin side. Not heavy, just about right. We just need to pick up on the sales piece.
I assume that means you're optimistic about 2014.
I am very optimistic about 2014. In the Phoenix market, not to take it too much to a micro level, we are seeing a giant leap in our inventory, and things have come to a little bit of a lull. So 2014 by no means is going to be an easy year, but we're very planned and strategic for the year. So I think taking all these things into consideration, we still will end the year very strong.
Very good. I also noticed you're focused on your team members and helping them achieve their goals. Do you require that they do any kind of business planning or goal planning for the upcoming year?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many of our team members are on this, but we have not shared the team business plan with them. I actually gave them individual business plans, certain pages that I wanted them to complete, because I don't want to shortchange them. If they have a bigger goal than what I've placed for them, I don't want to minimize that goal. And so I want them to set their own goals. They need to be aware of their own personal finances and the like in their production, and then set their own goals so that we can come back together and sit down and make the business plan. We may do some small adjusting based on their final goals, but again, definitely it's not just, hey, I'm the team lead and I say this is the way it's going to be. There has to be a little bit of flex and give, and that's the way that I get the full buy-in of our team.
Very good.
So the next slide here, we have the professional vision. The goal here at the end of 14, we sell $90 million in residential real estate while delivering a world-class level of service and professionalism to our clients, colleagues, and affiliates. I have a team that runs succinctly, follows an established process, delivers the expected level of service, and lead a higher quality of life than they ever have before.
Wow, 90 million is your goal.
Big goal. Big goal.
Wow.
But we can do it. We have a good plan, so we'll get there next. Bear with me, everyone, because the plan will break it down how we will get there.
Awesome.
The professional vision speaks towards some of the brokerage piece of it. So it says the brokerage employs quality talent who possess the knowledge and skill to deliver a wow real estate experience. They define our culture by living it every day. Our agents are actively learning and growing, increasing confidence and skills, servicing their clients, performing due diligence to protect the client and the company, and diligently putting clients' needs and goals over their own interests, and living a higher quality of life through it all. We provide extreme value critical to the current and continued success of our agents. The agents are aware of this value and have personal buy-in to the philosophy. They feel like partners in the company and are proud to be a part of it, recruit to it, and grow it.
Wow. So you really are building a big picture of where you want this business to be. When you're reading this and you're writing it out, Are you visualizing it as though you're actually seeing what it looks like? Are you just thinking about it conceptually? What's kind of going through your mind as you were creating this?
No, that's a great point, Mike. I actually did visually, I envision the entire process. I am probably more of a visual type of learner, so it makes sense that I would do that, but I definitely said, well, I'm sitting, at this spot at the end of 14, what do I want to see? And I literally can picture myself having a meeting with my team, walking through our company, and envisioning exactly what the culture feels like, and really tried to transcend it through that vision.
Awesome.
Last piece here is it says, so this is for the third piece, the third business that will be having a larger focus on that also going into the year. I have a following of 5,000 professionals who I add value for. I blog both written and via video daily, and I make a mark as a women leader in the industry. I define what frustrations exist, and I contribute to alleviate those frustrations and points of friction in our business.
And you said this is your third business. I remember the first slide you mentioned you're going to start a third business, and it sounds like this is some of the goals you have for that third business.
Yes. So the third business is more of the training and teaching, coaching piece. I think there's a lot of value, and I think that we're really lacking in something new and fresh, dynamic, strong, and not a fluff. Just, some hard-hitting sales skills. And so I'm excited to bring some of that content and knowledge to our industry.
Cool.
And then the last pieces here that we have on this next slide, I thought it was really important that I find out the areas that I really need to master. So I will surely butcher the saying that, you're jack of all trades, master of none, I think is the saying.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure that I have all these great plans and ambitions and goals, but what are the things that I need to really focus on and master to hit these goals? And so these are the pieces by no means that I'm just starting to practice. These are always a work in progress, but these are the things that I genuinely need to master to have any shot of hitting the goals that I have set for 2014. So number one, far and away, is the 90 minutes of uninterrupted thinking and planning. And I've just come to find out that I have to do this outside the office, because in the office it just doesn't happen. Even if I try to come early, someone else will show up early. And so I've gotten a little more strategic, getting closer to having that one happen every single day. Number two, because we do need to hit big numbers, I have to be very planned on the recruiting. Lead generation, obviously, in this business, and in any business, that's your lifeline. I have to perfect the repeatable process and systems that we have in place and continue to improve those. Planning and executing in 90-day cycles. I actually took this from Darren Hardy, who is a mentor, and I absolutely love many of the things that he says and teaches and suggests. And this is one that I've been doing in the last 6 months, and I've noticed and gained a lot of traction from it. So I'm excited to kick it off for the entire year. Basically what that means is breaking some of those things down either into 3 30-day cycles, 2 6-week cycles, or 4 3-week cycles. So the items listed beneath, the recruiting, training, and recognition, those are the things that I really need to focus on, and that I'll focus on in the 30-day cycles.
I have a couple questions about this. So you got the 5 areas that you're working towards mastery on. One is the 90-minute uninterrupted thinking and planning. Is that per day?
Yes, every day.
Do you intend to do that early in the morning, late in the afternoon, the evening?
That's a great question. I actually do that early in the morning. I've been one of these people for years saying, my brain just doesn't get going. I don't think well in the morning. I'm a night person. And I don't know if it's just a sign of age and having 4 kids and a business I'm running that I just run out of gas earlier in the day. But my ideas are just better in the morning. And I haven't kind of been damaged by the day, so to speak, by fires and anything else that's come my way. So far and away, I am a big believer now that the morning is the key and critical time to do that planning and thinking.
What kind of things are you working on during those 90 minutes?
I am an innovator for sure, so it depends what my topic is for the day, but for an example, yesterday, re-perfecting some of the recruiting scripts that we have planned and not having the run-of-the-mill things that every agent has heard or continues to hear, and so really spending that time focused and devoted on differentiating ourselves so that we can yield great results.
Very good.
Another day it may be lead generation. The topics vary.
You also mentioned number 5 was interesting to me as well, this idea of working in 90-day cycles. I understand the 330s. It seems weird to my head to see a 2-6 or a 4-3. Do you often work in those cycles as well?
No, to be honest, I typically do more of the 30-day cycles, but they have it listed out there. I've seen other people do it in other cycles, so I didn't want to limit to just because that works well for me, for the audience. There could be a time and place and something that makes sense to operate in a different type of cycle, but I'm with you. I do operate more in the 30-day cycles.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe if you had a bigger initiative, maybe that takes a little bit longer in time, it might be a reason that you would operate in one of the other cycles there. And then going back to, actually, this says professional vision, but I apologize, it's supposed to say personal vision. The areas to master personally are having a long-term financial plan. So revisiting, trust, not just having investments and letting them sit and think everything's okay, having those constantly reanalyzed, expanding the portfolio into different things, and updating the will as life goes on. Sometimes we create a will, but we don't go back and update as things change, as we add things to our portfolio, have additional children, and so forth. So just making sure that that plan is very well done so that my family's covered. Fitness.
Sure.
Continuing eating on the eating habits when you're working a lot of hours, that's not always easy, so that's always a focus. Again, mentioning the dedicated time engaged with my family, so not just physically present, but also emotionally and mentally. And then spirituality. So those are the personal pieces.
What are you doing on the fitness front? Are you working out each day?
So on the fitness front, I do work out each day, and I actually had to start off at an embarrassing rate of workout because my time was so limited, and I would always make that excuse, I just don't have time. I just can't do it today. I just don't have time. So basically, I literally started with just walking or running for 8 minutes every day. So it didn't matter what the case. If I had a migraine, I could walk for 8 minutes. I could blast through that. And now over time, because I've been able to do 8 minutes now, I've pumped that up to a little bit longer period of time. But there are some days where, hey, I may only have to do 8 minutes, but I still get the fitness in. And over time, that will yield me a result. And over time, really, it's built a habit where now it just happens.
Have you noticed that you're able to think clearer when you do more fitness activities?
Yeah, there is definitely a correlation. I have been reading about that for a couple of years, and I'm a believer in that. It definitely gives you increased energy and focus, ironically. You're not more tired when you work out. You actually do have this higher energy level because you have all those endorphins that are being released. So it's a pretty cool thing to experience physically and mentally.
Sure. A lot of people work on the fitness and the eating habits as well. What are you doing with the eating habits, and how's that affecting your business?
I am a foodie, so the eating habits is a hard one for me. What I've started on that are two different things. I love carbohydrates, so I've started just cutting out. If I would go somewhere and have, white rice as one of the sides, I'll choose a vegetable instead of doing the white rice or the potato. Really starting easy to just start with making a healthy choice a day. So if there's something where I'd say, you know what, I'm going to add dessert, I just cut out dessert altogether. So just making better choices all the way around. I'm definitely not an ideal person when it comes to eating and eat, perfect meal every single day with all the exact recommended food groups. But I think it's started very well just by making those changes in simple habits to the point now when I eat something like carbohydrates or just junk, my body reacts pretty quickly to it, and I can feel pretty quickly a decreased level of energy, like within 30 minutes. So then it makes me mentally remember that and not want to eat the things that make me feel that way.
Right.
So it's kind of a cool cycle.
Well, I'm excited to get into the numbers. Let's jump into the numbers.
That's where we're going. So we have this screen is the breakdown of the conversations that are needed. So I know we have a mix of people on today's call. So for those that are individual agents, please do not panic when you see these numbers. There is going to be a subsequent slide that gives some breakdown for individual, and also the takeaways for some of the lead generation can obviously be broken down for the individual agent as well. So bear with us as we go through these numbers. These are for the team. And the income goal for 2014 you can see is $2.851 and $200. That's a transaction goal of 576 transactions. And so to hit those numbers, we need to take at least 380 listings, sell 345 of them, and have 231 buyer sales.
Wow. Wow. How did you know that you would need those numbers to hit that goal? First of all, how did you set this goal of 1.8 million? Excuse me, 2.8 million.
Oh, that's okay. So I broke down basically, I looked at what our average sales price was currently, and I wanted to increase that just slightly. Previously we haven't had a focus on the average sales price or the price that we're targeting. We just always talk about units. And so I think units are important because you can work just as hard and sometimes even harder on the smaller dollar volume units than the higher, but I want to have a renewed focus on volume instead of just the units. So I think we can easily tick that up. Our average sales price right now was $169,000, so we jumped that up to $175,000, and ideally I want to have 12 agents sitting on the team. Right now our transaction goals for the agents is 4 transactions closed per month, so that's 48 closings per agent times the 12 agents times the average sales price. That's how we get to the income.
Sure.
That. So that really, is the basis here, but to get into the meat and the potatoes of it, this gives a little bit more of the breakdown we need to do. Again, 576 transactions. I actually took this piece of the business plan from a Tom Ferry business plan that he puts out there, and it's interesting because he has in here by default multiply line 1 by 40. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. Let me just check this number against the tracking mechanisms that we already have for our team, and I'll be darned if it was not almost spot on with some of the numbers, pretty much the average of the other team members. I had some that were a little over 40, some that were a little under 40, but more or less it hovered, I think for us, at about 38. So I think I thought that was pretty interesting. So I just wanted to share that in case anyone was wondering what that relevance, there must be some magic to that number, that's known out there. It's going to take about 40 people, 40 conversations to get somebody that's going to convert. And so you take your transaction goal, multiply that by 40. This tells you how many conversations you're going to need to have. And the new prospect conversation needed on a monthly basis. So obviously you break that down, and then it breaks it down to the daily number.
Wow, that is a lot of conversations. That is a lot of conversations.
But this number that we're looking at is also divided by 12 people.
But 23,000 conversations in the next year. That's a lot of talking.
That is a lot of talking.
Wow.
But again, we don't look at the income is very great as well, though. So you have to break down the numbers. And I think this, as an agent, by far and away, when I started mastering this tracking of the numbers, planning the numbers, knowing the numbers, this is where the magic happens. People are looking for a magic pill. If there's any magic pill in this industry, it's the planning piece and then backing it out on how you're going to get there. And so I think we definitely shortchange, which is why the event that you're putting together is so awesome. If people really have some great buy-in to this, they have no choice but to yield great results. Now they're going to have to execute come 2014. You can't just write the plan and put it in a drawer, but if you spend a lot of time writing the plan, doing the research of the things that you're going to need to do, you would be pretty foolish not to actually follow through and execute, because you're hopefully setting some exciting goals, and so you have a plan and you don't just get up every day not knowing what to do. You know exactly how many people you need to get in front of and need to talk to, and if you do that, as long as you're having some fairly decent conversations, you will hit your goals.
And so this is your team goal. Your team goal is to make 104, almost 105 conversations per day, which would be crazy for an individual, but for a team of 12, that's like, what, maybe 8 conversations a day? Then it becomes a little more realistic.
That's completely doable. Yes, very realistic and very doable, and actually, that's pretty much what we're doing right now as a team. So when we grow those numbers, if we have the right people on the seats in our bus, we have no reason that we can't hit this number as a team.
Very cool.
So I'm going to jump over. There is a slide that gives the individual breakdown. It will be right after I go through these lead generation tools. So for the individual agents, just hang tight because that will come up here in just a bit. But for the next couple of slides, obviously I have to be specific and have a strategy and a plan on what we're going to do to generate leads for the team. And so some of those things are generated by the activities that the agents are doing, and then some of them are actually team-generated leads by administrative or purchase leads and so forth. So let's just jump in here. This particular slide talks about open house. And it's been interesting because the last, 3 or 4 agents that I've had conversations with that are top agents all over the country talk about open house. And so I think it's funny, and it's very interesting that it's making this resurrection. It's an age-old activity in the real estate industry, and some people have really gotten away from it. They've made fun of it, but there's this renewed interest in it. If you can do a mega open house, do something on a bigger, grander scale, and plan is another key word for it. As long as you're being very planned, you can actually yield some great results with open house. And so here, the basic outline is that you need to place a minimum of 10 signs. So you have to be very specific on the houses that you're choosing for the open house. You can't have something that takes 10 turns to get to, because that's just not going to be a successful open house. You need something that's no more than 3, maybe if you had a great home, 4 turns from a major traffic, from the main road. And we have to place a lot more signage. I've heard some agents even doing upward of 20 to 25 signs. I don't think that you can put too many signs, but obviously that takes some more work when you put a larger number of signs. Also, what we've been doing and we've had some great success with is actually inviting 25 of the closest neighbors. So we make a special invitation. It's on a very nice card, almost looks like an invitation, and we door knock those people that live, depending on the neighborhood, sometimes we do up to 30, to invite them, and we do the first hour is a VIP portion, open only to the neighbors. So people obviously always want to be a part of something special. It's exclusive, and it also gives us that one-on-one time at the door to have those conversations. Hey, have you guys thought about moving? So on and so forth, so we can have listing conversations. Do they have someone that can buy the home? We've been able to yield great results, and we actually make our sellers very happy because we have a lot more visitors to our open houses this way. We've also done some paid Facebook ads that we're going to tick up a notch in 2014 to drive some traffic to the open house, because you can be specific with some of those ads in the areas that they go out, which when they're targeted can yield some good results as well. And the team players involved in this are admin and the buyer's agents. The cost of the system actually is pretty cheap. It's inexpensive. It's just really more time intensive versus money. And obviously you can have a title company help with the printing costs and so on and so forth. So this definitely helps alleviate the costs. This will yield us about 576 leads. And I did this calculating the results that we yielded in 2013 and just multiplying how many open houses that we had planned or have planned in 2014, and that's how I arrived at the 576 leads.
Do you happen to know how many open houses you had in your plan to end up with 576 leads?
You know what? I do. I have that number written down, but I did not bring that with me today to the call because there was a lot of planning and tracking and metrics that I had to go back and reference in order to give the raw numbers. So I did not bring that number with me today. I apologize.
That's okay. You also mentioned the Facebook ad. That seems really interesting and unique to me. It sounds like you've tested that a little bit. How are you targeting people with an ad for an open house in a certain neighborhood? What kind of targeting are you using?
So you can't target, as far as I know, you can't target for a specific neighborhood, but there's some other features within Facebook that you can be a little bit more targeted on the people as far as area, and it depends on how much information they have inputted as well into their Facebook profile. And they're relatively cheap. So we're asking people when they come in how they heard about us, and we actually have had a little bit of traction. The cost is not that great, so I definitely wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket, and I wouldn't dump a ton of money and hope that that's the only way that we're going to get traffic. But so far we've made a little bit of traction with that, so I think it makes sense to continue on in the coming year with that.
Cool.
All right, next piece that we have here is the pay-per-click. This one I think has become very big. By far and away is the most expensive piece of lead generation. Currently we're using Boomtown, MoveUp.com, and SmartZip. And the total cost for that runs $83,400, of which we have about $30,000 offset by affiliates, so marketing agreements and so forth that we have with the lenders.
Huh. Very good. So you're, the pay-per-click, where are those ads going out to? I'm trying to get an idea there. Boomtown, that's kind of where they land, right? That's the website. What's MoveUp.com?
So MoveUp.com is more, and I probably should have put pay-per-click / paid if we're paying for leads. So MoveUp.com is one of those sites where we actually pay a flat fee monthly, and they basically email you when people go to their MoveUp.com, they land, we've paid for a certain area, and we receive leads. So that's more of a purchase lead. That's not a pay-per-click. So I apologize. I should have put pay-per-click / bot lead. And the SmartZip, that's actually a really great tool. They have some analytics, and based on all these algorithms and things that they dump into their big melting pot, they've been able to predict, obviously it's not 100%, but they can tell you the higher ratio of people that are more probable to move in a particular area. So if you pick a particular subdivision, they will tell you, okay, instead of farming this entire subdivision of, 3,000 or 4,000 people, you should target these top 20%, because these 20% are the most likely to move based on, and they dump all these factors in. That actually has proved to be relatively accurate, and along with that, they also do some tracking mechanisms. So when we send out, there's a postcard campaign that goes with that. When we send out postcards to them, the consumer goes on to the site, they type in their specific key code, and when they do that, it actually puts a cookie on their computer. And I'm sure when I explain this, some people will say, oh, that's why I see that. And then when those consumers go to search something else, they go to Amazon.com to shop, our ad comes up with our logo and our faces kind of down in the bottom. How do you want to say, those junk ads, those subliminal messages show up off to the side, and they start showing up all the time. So I don't know if you've noticed, I recently bought some light fixtures for my house from a particular company, and I go to other completely different sites, and pictures of those specific light fixtures are popping up everywhere. Like I can't go to a web page without seeing those light fixtures on all these random sites. And so that's definitely something that we've seen, and I think it will play a big part in future advertising online. So that's an exciting piece that's enabled us to implement that piece.
Cool.
So and then to go back to Mike, to your question, the Boomtown is just the system, the back-end piece, if you will, and the consumer experience, or the platform, I guess, that holds the leads, it's somewhat a CRM as well. But the pay-per-click, the cost for these is not only just in running the system, but you have to generate people and get traffic to those sites. So whether it be, we have pay-per-click to come to our own sites as well, but we get more traction, and Boomtown seems to be a little bit stickier, where we can get people to get to that page and they stay. So this is where we're actually paying when people search homes in Goodyear, and they have a different, there's a list of keywords. You're paying, the better the keywords, the more expensive it is. And so when people go on, say Google, and they type in these searches, your ads would come up towards the top.
Is Boomtown running those campaigns for you, or are you running the campaigns and then directing people to Boomtown?
We've done it both ways. At this point in time, we're actually doing it through Boomtown. So we just pay a flat fee to them, and they do the work of generating the pay-per-click ads.
Okay.
But there are pay-per-click sites out there. We tried for a bit doing it on ourselves, but for the cost and time intensity, we didn't yield any better results. So I think we just wanted to test it to make sure that our dollars were being well spent, and they were. So it just made the most sense to put it back in their hands and let them do that.
Very good. Well, even though it looks like a huge number, which it is, this monster budget, I guess if you break it down, it's really coming out to about $40 per lead. Does that sound right?
That's right. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's funny, because that's exactly what I looked at when I was reanalyzing the plan, to say, all right, well, here are some of the things that we've been doing. Should we continue doing them? All right, well, yes, this annual cost is a big cost, but the number of leads is a reasonable number of leads it produces. So do we continue on with that? And Boomtown, I did just pick that up in March of 2013, so I haven't had a full year with them. So I'm interested to get to the end of March of 2014 so that I can really track and see the complete conversion ratio, because obviously I have paid attention to that as well. But internet leads do take a little bit longer to convert. So giving that full cycle of 1 year, going back to look and see what that conversion ratio is, then we may make different decisions even in the second half of 2014 if need be. But it is expected that the internet leads do take a little bit longer to cultivate.
Do you recall what the ratio is for these internet leads? What percentage will close?
Of the leads that we did, actually, I do have that here. And of the leads that we had close in 13 so far, the conversion ratio was 1.7%.
So almost 2%.
Yeah.
So about 1 in 50, and so if it's costing you $40, it's costing you about $2,000 per closing. Does that sound about right?
So far. So far.
Okay.
So that's definitely a higher number than I'd like to see, because there's splits with the teams and administrative costs and other things. So that's why I said, well, I think that number is a little bit skewed because the time that it takes to cultivate some of these.
Right.
So there's just some other variables that I need to be careful of when I just look at that number. But it is a much higher number than what I'd like to see.
Well, you need a starting point, and then you'll start narrowing it in and improving that conversion percentage, which will lower that overall cost per closing.
Yes, and of course that's one of the variables, because we've had a bigger focus in 13 to work internet leads. There's some trials and tribulations and trial and error that happens through all of that, so that's obviously another variable I have to consider as far as scripting and skills and so forth.
Thank you for walking us through that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next one here is hitting on the geofarming via mail. So this is just your mail farm. And on this one, we're doing 96,000 postcards annually. I actually did break out the response rates on this. Sorry, I should have thought of doing it on all of them because it would add more value. Our response rate is 2.7%, so it's $25.92 a year. And then we also do mailed newsletters separately. Smaller farm, more expensive piece that goes out to the COI. and those are mailed every month, that response rate is better because, most likely because it's our COI. We have a 7% response rate either from them or a referral they give us. That yields 147 a year, so the total there is 2739 for leads, and then the cost 97,200.
Huh. Okay. So the 96,000, that's more generic. It's going out to a geographic farm, a general geographic farm. Your 2,100 is going out to your sphere of influence, the people you know. That's why it's a higher response rate. What kind of information are you putting into these? Let's start with the postcard. What does this postcard look like that's going to generate a 2.7% response?
So we have a mix of these. The postcards have been a mesh either of some market data, market information, or the map. It's a beautiful piece, and it has a map of their particular few streets, say, and has a picture of their house on it. And so really it's more of the piece. Are you interested in finding out what your value is? Because we've had such a shift in our particular market in the last 8 to 12 months. And so people want to know what their value is. That target, I think, will need to be a little bit different in 14 because people kind of have an idea now. No one's wanted to look, the last 3 to 5 years on their value. They've heard some more optimism, so now they've been curious the last several months. But I think that will shift again in 14. So the messaging that we do will most likely need to change. We'll have to just track that very closely first quarter. But I'm already seeing that come down a little bit. But as far as the pieces are concerned, that's what those pieces look like. And the newsletter is actually a 5-piece, full color, very nice. It's not newspaper style. It's actually more of a magazine type, just not very many pages. It features some of the listings, and then it has other household content, tips, ideas, so on and so forth. It's just really trying to stay in front of them on a constant basis and give them a nicer piece.
Very good. And it looks like you're basically mailing out once a month. Does that sound right?
On the newsletters, yes. Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. We do. Actually, the postcards are twice a month, and then the newsletters are once a month.
Okay. How big is that?
I don't think I put that. The postcards are 8,000. We're doing 8,000 a month for the postcards. And the cost for the postcards is about 75 cents each. Now, I've gone up and down on that number because I have had some help with the title company before. I've had some of our affiliates help offset the cost with printing. We've tried to every door direct because that can be a lot less expensive. And we backed away from that, and we just wanted to have a more automated process because for the time, energy, and effort on a grand scale for us, I just didn't feel it made sense. So we probably pay a little bit more per piece than others and that you could get it for. So that's another piece that we're going to look at. It was another telling fact when I reviewed 13, but that's another piece that we could cut costs and have a better overall ROI if we can cut that down.
Sure. Now, you said the postcards are going out to 8,000 per month, but you also mentioned it was going out twice a month. So do you have a group of 4,000 homes that you're sending a postcard to twice a month?
So it's not one particular group, but altogether, yeah, there's 4,000. It's not one subdivision that makes up to 4,000, but yes, we have 4,000 that we're trying to hit and be consistent. That's where I've seen a lot of agents fall off with the farming piece. They get frustrated that they don't yield an immediate result. Again, that one takes time and traction, and so we've just remained consistent and utilized our smart zip areas that I talked about and dripping on those people consistently, and that's how many people we have in that database.
So it is a database of 4,000. You're sending something out to them every 14 days or twice a month, but the consistency is what's bringing in this 2.7% response rate.
Yes, because we're staying consistently in front of them. So I think they're getting, I don't know in your area, but in our area, it's definitely come back where we're seeing more mail pieces. I haven't seen any mail marketing from real estate agents in, gosh, at least the last 4 years. And again, those are kind of resurfacing, but I'll see one and then they disappear. And so with us, we're sending the message that, hey, we are in this area. They see signs in the areas. And so we're really building the brand and staying very targeted by doing those mailings in those areas.
One more question there. The geographic farm that you have, are you going every single home in the neighborhood, or did you say you had some kind of selection process? I think you said Smart Zip, where you're picking one home and then, 4 homes down, you're hitting that one, and 7 homes more down, you're hitting that one because you think they have a higher probability of selling, or was it the neighborhood you thought had a higher probability of selling?
We're using that Smart Zip system, so it's more targeted than just every single house in the neighborhood.
Aha. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing the results by the end of 2014. That sounds really cool.
Me too. We've had, like I said, some good traction so far. So, again, trying to create that baseline and see where we end up, 6 to 8 months from now, because that will, put us a lot further in where we should be able to look back and have some more metrics to evaluate. All right, so the next piece that we have here is for the website, SEO, and blogging. I lumped this all into one because this is a little bit newer focus for us. It hasn't yielded a ton of leads in the past, and I have a higher expectation, but I don't want to set too of a high expectation and not have the leads come in. So I set the number pretty low on this one with 104 leads. It's about 2 leads a week coming in. And basically, we're going to continue to update the website. That's one of my peeves in the industry is when you go to someone's website and it has outdated content. And so we're constantly checking. I was just on my profile on Trulia yesterday and saw that it was a little bit outdated, with some of the numbers, and it had an older picture of me. So we constantly are touching on these different places to make sure everything is updated, but especially on your personal website, the content has to be fresh. You can't talk about the real estate market as it was, 5 or 6 years ago, and that's the key to doing anything of success in internet and SEO is the content has to be relevant, it has to be new. And adding that blogging piece as well, which falls in line with my business plan, doing that 2 times a week should get us some additional exposure from some different avenues. And so I'm pretty conservative, I think, with that 104 leads.
Okay.
With that piece. And the last piece is the prospecting. We've actually had phenomenal success with our prospecting. I like to think that we have some of the best, most skilled agents in the business because we actually do sit down as a group and prospect. And so they give each other high fives and little tips and tricks, and obviously we give some critique and feedback as well. We do 2 hours of calling or door knocking, mostly calling. The door knocking, you just can't hit as many doors as you can make phone calls, but obviously the face-to-face conversations are of higher value than a phone call, so we definitely still make time for those. And what we're working during that time are expireds, FSBOs, just listed, just sold, open house calls. Actually, we've just started those. And then divorces and bankruptcies. There's a system. I don't know if it's a national system or not, but I want to think it is. It's called Benutech, and it's spelled BENUTECH. And through that system, you can actually pull a subdivision. So if you want to pull the numbers that are available for houses near your open house, you can do that. You can pull up recently filed divorces and bankruptcies. So it's a great tool, especially for someone that's just saying, well, how do you even get numbers for any of these things, that you can go in. It's a relatively low cost, a monthly fixed cost to pull that. And then we also use Cole List, C-O-L-E, list, and you can buy thousands of leads, very inexpensive, 5 cents a lead is what we pay. It's not a lead, I'm sorry, per number. And so you can make, generic calls to specific areas, and you can pull lists all kinds of ways. But those are 2 of the tools that we use for the prospecting.
Wow, 16,000 leads in the upcoming year. That is a lot of leads.
That is a lot of leads, and that's the lowest cost per lead. It is a very effective form, which I have to kind of look back, and when I finished the whole business plan, look back and did a small chuckle, because that's the piece that, as agents, we resist the most. It's the least fun. We say, oh, this is just not fun. Nobody who wants to pick up the phone and just start calling. And one of the ways that we had some great success, I think, breaking through with our agents is really breaking down the numbers obviously it comes with confidence. If you don't really know what to say when you get on the phone, that's not going to be fun or exciting. No one wants to do that. It's very uncomfortable. So the more you can do it, the higher your skill, the easier it will be to do. But the other piece was to really, again, track your numbers, know your numbers, and we have it broken down to see this is how much money you make per hour that you prospect. One of the agents on our team makes just under $1,200 an hour prospecting. So I don't think it's ironic. She's the best prospector that we have. And when we tell her, you make $1,200 an hour when you prospect, we don't get a lot of resistance from her. She prospects. And when the other team members see those kind of numbers, that's exciting, right? That means someone else is out there doing it. They can too. And so it definitely, I mean, you can touch on the most people in the smallest amount of time. It yields the greatest result. Prospecting by far and away for us is a top tool.
Wow. Wow. Now you said 2 hours of calling. Is that 2 hours of calling per day?
Yes. So we have 3 days a week in office where we actually monitor that. So it's a required call time. You have to be here in the office every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 11. The other 2 days you're on your honor. However, we haven't had any challenges with that because if they were to skew their numbers, we would obviously see that in their production, and we just haven't experienced that. So, and I think we have full buy-in that they understand the value of prospecting, so they feel they're cheating themselves, if they cheat those numbers, and I think they like prospecting now because they know that's a good portion of the business.
Sure. Well, I went ahead and tried to break that down per day, and even though 16,000 is huge for the year, it comes out to like 69 per day if you just do working days. And then if you got 12 people doing that, it's about 5 or 6 leads per day for each agent. Does that sound about right?
That's what I came up with.
Oh, okay. And so they're able to hit that.
And I'm glad you broke it down because I should have broken it down for the audience, but it's not that scary. I think because you look at it on an annual basis, that's the scary part, but when you break it down to that micro level, it's pretty reasonable and doable.
Sure. Oh, that's pretty cool.
So here is what all the individual agents have been waiting for. This is the breakdown, the per agent numbers for the agents on our team. And so we talked earlier on about how I came up with that income goal. Again, just to recap, it was based on 4 closings per agent per month, so 48 deals, and the average sales price at $175. You come up with $118,800 after you do the split. So it tells you how many transactions you need, number of listings they'll need to take and then sell, and the number of buyer sales.
Those are great numbers. And so this is your goal for each individual agent. Now they may have flexibility, they may have different goals, but basically you can hit those gigantic numbers by having each agent hit this goal, and this is a pretty phenomenal goal for an individual agent, $118,000.
Yeah, they're happy, and we have a few of our agents that are hitting these numbers. I would be lying if I sat here today and said every agent on our team is hitting this income goal. They're not. In fairness, number one, we're cranking up the volume that we're looking at, that volume number instead of just units. We left the unit transaction goal the same, but accounting for the market increasing, and if we have a focus on a higher price point, then I feel that that's reasonable, that can happen. And we have a couple of people that are hitting these numbers, and the other agents, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. It takes us a little bit longer as the team leaders to figure out what we need to do to get to their why, to get them to produce the amount that they want to produce and that we want them to produce. But again, just really optimistic about what's going to happen in 2014.
Nice.
So this continues on the breakdown per agent. So again, the transaction goal is 48. Multiply that by 40 conversations. It's 1920. Divide that by 11 months, 174.55. So they need to talk to 8.73. And just call it 9 people a day, accounting for the working days. Now, some people are working 6 days a week, so If you're having conversations 6 days a week, you can drop that number a little bit more, but based on the working days, so 5 days a week, that number is just under 9.
These 9 conversations per day, they're actual conversations. It's not 9 dials of the phone or 9 doors knocked. It's 9 people you actually talk to.
Yes, so you're absolutely right. It's not 9 just dials. You have to actually get in front of 9. But I think this is the magic number right here, Mike. If every agent would figure out, hey, I just need to talk to X number of people. For us, it's 9. For them, maybe it's not 9. Maybe it's 5. Maybe it's 10. If they wake up every day saying, I have to talk to 10 new people and have a conversation about real estate, they have no choice but to do business. They will just have opportunities in business come at them. And we've seen this time and time again, even in our own company and outside our company. I'm sure we've all worked with people on the other side of the deal, and you kind of say, gosh, I have no idea how they get the amount of business they do, because they may not know the contract very well, and they may not be the smartest people that we've met, but they do it. And the point is they actually get out and have those conversations, and they're doing the activity, and that's why they yield the results that they yield. And so when I break it down that way, it's not really a surprise when I look at some of the people that do the amount of business that they do. But just to take it back in, if we as agents would just have that specific focus every day, not I have to check email, I don't have to do this. I have, by the end of the day, before I come back home and put my feet up, I've had to talk to 9 people. I can't finish my day without talking to, for us, 9 people. They will hit the numbers. The numbers will come.
Nice. Okay, let's get back to the Q&A. If you have questions for Carin, please type it into the box on your screen. Let's get to the first question. Carin, the first question is from Dave, and he says, you said the key to success was execution and consistency. How do you keep yourself on track every day? There are so many distractions.
Wow, that's a great question. It's funny. I have this thing with my team, and I got it completely wrong, and no one corrected me for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And it was that yes is easy and no is hard. I was saying that backwards, but that's just become, I have to remember that. Yes is easy. So if somebody says, hey, do you have a couple of minutes? The thing that wants to come out of my mouth is, oh, yeah, sure, or what? It's just a couple of minutes. And I've had to really rein that in and say, no, unfortunately right now I don't. So just being a little bit more guarded doesn't mean I can't be helpful, but I just have to be very clear, and going to the 90-day cycle really helps me, because I can be focused to say, all right, if this conversation or this activity I'm engaged in right now is not an income-generating conversation or activity, is this a required activity? So obviously there's going to be things, fires that come up in a real estate transaction. I can't ignore those. I have to deal with that. But if it's, some small talk or something else, I can be very clear to say, is this a conversation that's going to yield me income, or is it a required conversation or activity? If the answer is no, I have become very good at focusing and redirecting my energy and setting myself up not to be distracted. I try at all costs not to multitask.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Looks like we've got a question here from Bill. Regarding your geographic farming, how long on average did it take you to contact the folks twice a month in order to get to the 2.7% response rate?
So as I mentioned, we've implemented that in March of last year. And so I just looked at the figures overall cumulative for the year. So it wasn't really a 12-month number that I looked at. It was middle of March. So really, that was about 8.5 months. Oh, we're not even there, actually. We're not even at the end of the month. So we're probably more like at 7 months worth of data, and that's where we've gotten to at this point. We really did not see any traction with that at all until about month 3. We had a couple, onesie-twosies coming in here and there, but really didn't start to see a better yield until about the 3.5, 4th month.
Okay, very good. Somebody's asking about, I think one of the resources that you mentioned, they said DenTech. I think it was the Venue Tech. Maybe that was what it was?
Ben. So B is in boy, E, N is in Nancy, Tech, T-E-C-H.
Ah,
and actually
Benutech.
that's Benutech. I think you can just Google probably benutech.com.
Awesome, thank you. Had another, and that was Aline, and then we have a question from Lisa. Lisa says, what is the script that you use for bankrupt and divorced individuals?
Oh, we don't have a specific script for them. We just use our generic prospecting script. So for that particular client, we're not going to let on that we know that they're going through a divorce or bankruptcy. We're basically just calling them, and we have one of two scripts that we're going to use. We're either going to call generically and ask, where are you moving next? If you thought of this home, where are you moving next? And sometimes they say, well, I haven't thought about moving. Well, that's great, but if you were to move, where would you go next? And we take it that direction. Or we use a just sold script. So obviously divorce and bankruptcy, we know their address and their information, so we pull up the sales in the immediate area, and then we call them and say, hi, did you realize that the house at 235 Citrus Way just sold for $350,000? Your values are definitely up in your area. If you guys sold this home, where would you move next? And so we're just going in generically. We don't let on that we have any personal information.
You don't call up and say, I heard you just got a divorce and you're bankrupt. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good conversation.
No, we don't use that. There's not a script for that. That's just a hang-up. That's just asking for the hang-up and maybe something
what they're
else.
doing,
So we don't go there.
It's giving you a target for your general script.
And that's it.
But you already know they probably have a need, and so they're going to probably respond better to your general script.
Yes, so that's a great question. Whoever asked that question, that was a great question.
That was Lisa. That was a good one. All right, let's see. We've got Angela. How many hours do you work per day? How are you managing the brokerage and working as an agent?
So my hours actually have backed off, and the reason I've been able to back off my hours is because instead of me trying to do everything myself, type A personality, I've surrounded myself with people that can do things better than I can. So paperwork, can I handle paperwork? Sure. Do I like to? No, but I can do a good job. And gosh, for years and years, I would just say, you know what, I'm just going to do this. It'll take me a few minutes. Why am I going to have someone else do that? But those few minutes add up over time. So I'm actually working a more reasonable amount of hours with a higher level of production now than I ever have. So to answer the question specifically, I work every morning from 7:30 until about 6. There'll be some days where I leave a little bit early. I do have 4 kids, so sometimes I have to pick up kids, get them situated, and then I have to work, a couple of hours in the evening. I haven't calculated what the time frame is, but if I do that situation, I'm definitely never on a computer or phone or anything past 7 o'clock. I'm not taking calls. If my team sends me some type of a text, it's because it's a fire. I'll answer that, but I'm not working past those hours. For an individual agent, because, when you go on a listing appointment, I get that. There's going to be times where you have to work in the evenings. But one of the biggest things I can say, being an individual agent and not a team lead always, and having pretty much 4 kids, 2 of them in the peak when I've done the highest production in the real estate cycle, is just setting boundaries. If you don't set boundaries, gosh, I was just talking about this morning with someone else, and he mentioned to me he thinks the divorce rate in real estate is probably the highest in any other industry, and I think it's because we never set boundaries as agents, and so I just think it's critical as an individual. I can't even say as a mother, just for sanity purposes in this business, you have to set boundaries. And we can't get mad at our clients, if they call us at 9 o'clock at night. If we've answered the phone for them before at 9 o'clock at night, we've set the expectation it's okay and that we should answer the phone at 9 o'clock at night. If they don't expect you to answer the phone at that time, they don't expect you to work on Sundays, set whatever those particular boundaries are. I think as long as you're loyal to yourself and to your family in that regard, you can still yield an enormous amount of success.
Very good. We have a question here from Wendy. What do you recommend for the single agent without a team, daily, weekly, monthly, 2-hour lead gen a day, and amount of postcards and newsletters to send out to service properly? Thank you in advance. Well, I think you kind of outlined the big picture, and if they just take your big picture and divide by 12, wouldn't they get down to a goals for a single agent?
Yeah, I do think that you can break it down a little bit further. So if I can just address it quickly, that I don't even know if I would start the postcard piece. I would be, as an individual agent, I would be very focused on what I'm doing, and I would solely focus on either the door knocking or the calls, but some type of prospecting piece. Because on the farming piece, that's going to take a little bit more capital, and it's going to take consistency. So unless you have the capital to fund it to remain consistent, I don't even think you go to that piece until you can get there, if that makes sense. And I think some people, and that's where we see failure in that piece of the industry, people get excited and say, okay, that's another task I need to be doing, but they don't have the funds to back that for several months at a time, and they get frustrated and they pull out of it and they don't yield any results. So I say have a specific focus on the prospecting. We know that yields a great result. So to be specific on that, 2 hours every single day. If that's too much, pull it back. If you're going from not calling at all, 2 hours every day is probably not going to happen. You're going to get overwhelmed with that. So just make a plan. Start somewhere. Initiate something. Maybe you do 1 hour every day or 1 hour 3 days a week. I mean, the point is do something and then work your way up to it. And when you're more comfortable, you'll have no problem. But ideally, you want to be prospecting at least 2, if not 3 hours every day. But as you get busy, 3 hours gets tough because now you're showing and going on appointments. So hopefully that gives a little bit better direction for her.
Sure. Well, this is kind of an interesting question. Ron asks, he's got 2 parts. What is your net income to you personally after all expenses? I don't know if you're going to be comfortable answering that, but maybe you could give us a target range that you're trying to hit as a percentage of your gross, what you're trying to net out at your level, a really big team, and then maybe what would be a reasonable net expectation for, say, a single agent.
Okay. Yeah, I've had some conversations with some people, and there's some smoke and mirrors that definitely happen in the real estate industry, and people are doing big numbers, but their gross is great, but their net is pathetic, and I don't even know why you would do all that work for that. So what I'm targeting is a 65-35. So with the overhead and everything else, it'll be about 65%, and my net will be about 35%. That's what I'm shooting for. And I think agents that say they're doing exponentially much more than that probably are not being truthful. There's just too much cost in running a team and administrative and lead generation and so forth. So that's the number that we're targeting there. As far as an individual agent, depending on what you're doing, the type of activities, as I shared in the plan, prospecting is much more cost effective. So if you are running the prospecting piece only, I think even if you have a transaction coordinator, because I don't think your time is best served doing the paperwork, you need to have a real focus on the sales process, that you're probably looking at 50-50 as far as your take home. You still have some expense because you should be reinvesting back into your business so that you can eventually do postcards and other methods of lead generation.
It's a great answer.
And then you have the cost, obviously, for the transaction coordination, too. And you're adding people to your database, and you have to farm that. Right? There's all these costs that people don't account for. So if you look at it bare bones, some agents might be sitting back and going, oh, well, she's silly because my profit margin's way more than 50%. Well, yeah, it might be, but you're not accounting for you're running a business. And so when you're running a business, you should be adding people to your database. You should be mailing them a newsletter. That costs money, so that increases over time. Hopefully you're pouring money into some type of personal development. That's a business expense because that's your betterment in industry. So there's a lot of costs, I think, that go into that. So I would say as an individual agent, probably about 50-50.
Very good. The second part of Ron's question was interesting as well. If you could pick only one prospecting method, if you could only pick one prospecting method, what would you do?
I love expireds, but there's just not enough of those. And in our market, there's a lot of people calling it expireds, but I just really love the expired listings because they've already been somewhat, it sounds terrible, but they're kind of beat up by the market. they're a little bit more apt to listen to the professional. So I would say the expireds. If I had to have a second to that, because there are not very many expireds in our area, I would say just listed, just sold. So basically you would pick a property either that you or within your brokerage just listed or just sold, just a call generic. It's somewhat of a warm call because you're giving them some type of information. Hey, did you realize that the home right across the way from you at such and such just sold? And if you sold your home, where would you move next? Just starting that conversation, so it's a little bit easier conversation.
Sure. James had a question. It looks like he may be in Phoenix as well. He said, what is the largest challenge when conducting business in a high inventory market?
The biggest challenge is always reinventing. I think now more than ever in the real estate industry, we have a higher level of competition, and I'm sure we can thank the internet for that, and I actually am thankful for that. I don't say that facetiously. I'm serious. People have done a lot more to grow their skills and so forth. So to really be specific and say, gosh, what's the biggest piece is being creative. But that's one of the pieces I love the most. I have to constantly reinvent myself and our team on the strategies that we're using, because we can't use these somewhat outdated. There's some things that work, age-old methods, but there's some things that just need some fresh approach, and you can't use these cliche, old, worn-out sales tactics because people are tired of hearing them. The consumers are more in tune, and they're more educated as well. So you have to bring your A game, and so I would say just constantly having a focus on not being complacent and reinventing content and strategy. Just because it worked last year or even last month doesn't mean it's going to work this year or next month. So you have to, again, it goes back to tracking the numbers though, so really knowing the numbers and staying up on your innovation.
Very good. I don't have a name attached to this one, but someone asked, kind of tied into your last topic, should I only call expireds within my farm area?
I would say no. I would call expireds in any particular area, and I mean, if you have, once you take an expired listing and you successfully sell it, well, now you can add that to your resume. And so I would use that data once you're able to do that. Maybe the first one or two are in your area because you're a little bit more comfortable, but especially in our area, there's a lack of expireds. I definitely would not limit it to a particular area. However, it does get a little bit dangerous depending on how far outside your area you're going, how different the markets are. So I can only really speak to our particular market. I'm thinking Metro Phoenix is a giant market. I could easily call an expired across town, and it's 60 miles away, but in a different area, 60 miles away could be a completely different market, and the agent's going to be very uneducated. But what's the worst thing that they could do? They say no, you don't get the listing. If anything, it's just another practice, it's another at-bat. So I say, pick up the phone and call. The best thing that can happen is that you get the listing. And I actually did just hear a story where someone she was a newer agent, she did not like calling expireds, and she was able to take, I think it was like a $1.4 million listing off of an expired call. So gosh, there's no way to build your confidence than by doing that, right? So I say, what do you have to do to practice? Yeah, that's a good day. That's right.
Very good. Well, again, if you're on the phone and you'd like to ask a question, to raise your hand, press *2. And we've got a bunch more questions here. Thank you, Carin, for working through with us. We've got a question from Florence. She said, can you discuss Smart Zip in more detail?
Well, it's Smart Zip Analytics. That's the name of it. So I'm not sure what specifically more you'd want to know about it. You do pay per area, and you do purchase it per area. So depending on an area that you'd be interested, it could be sold out. The agents do have to renew on those areas annually, so there's a chance that you could be put on a waiting list. I'm fairly certain that their address is just smartzip.com, but I'm not sure what specifically you would like to know about it, other than really what they're providing is a list. It's a more targeted list, and if you'd like, you can also utilize them to send out mailings and postcards and so forth. And then, as I explained, that postcard has a tracking number. When they put in that tracking number to get their value, it sends us a notification that they did that, and it also places that cookie on their computer so that our little ads start popping up when they're doing their online searches.
Wow, that is really all-inclusive, isn't it? It's a lot more than just a direct mail piece.
It can be, but you can just purchase the list only. We tried it both ways and ended up, it was just easier to have them run the whole process. So now they send out the mail pieces for us.
And do the tracking online with that cookie and put your ads up in front of them as they're searching around.
Oh, we're doing a lot of research, though, because we want to duplicate that. That's a huge, huge tool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can't wait to hear how that plays out as well. We have a question here from Jerry, and I think I understand what she's asking. She said, branded versus independent or no name. I think what she means is your company, you're an independent company, and I think her question is, has that made a big difference in your business, whether you're, say, with a large franchise or a well-known company versus your own independent company? And she also added in the question of, does the price of the property that you're working in, does that affect this decision?
So to answer the first part of the question, I don't know if I understand the second question, but I'll go there next. The first part is with regard to the independent versus big brand name. I'm not going to sit here and bash the big brand names, because those companies and those agents, they do fairly well, but that's just never been an issue for me. I've never worked I came from an independent company, broke off and started my own independent. And at the end of the day, I think consumers, again, they're more savvy than they've ever been. At the end of the day, you can have a great agent at a big brand name, and you can have a great agent at a small independent. You have bad agents on both sides as well, and it's not the company that sells the house, it's the agent. So as long as you have the confidence and skills, I really don't think the name matters at all. I think really what the big piece there for the agents is the value that you get from the company. So for me, I've outsourced a lot of things because I'm very proactive that way as far as sales training and skill. So that's never played a factor, and it just really has not impacted my business. I can't really attest to any slow or lack of business. I've never not been able to take a listing or get a sale because of the name of my company. If anything, it's just cause for further conversation, and I think they appreciate working with a smaller company.
Sure.
Second piece of that question, Mike, did you understand that?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, to conclude what you're saying, I think you're saying that it really depends more on the agent than the company today. People are hiring the individual over the company itself. And I think the second part of her question was, is that change at all if, say, you're working at the high end of the market rather than just the middle of the market?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that brings up a good point. As we've had more of a focus working with the higher end, they ask more about the company name, but again, it's going to be with that, they want to know more of the marketing, and they want to know your skills of negotiation. So I think really ultimately the answer goes back to the same answer I gave for the first part of the question. It really relies on the confidence and skill of the agent. If you think that are you any less valuable of an agent working at a big name that sells luxury real estate? No, of course not. And so as long as you can explain that to your buyers and sellers, they don't have any challenge with that. They want to have that comfort level with the agent. That's who they work with. As long as they're confident and comfortable that you can get the job done, you'll get the business.
Sure. Well, we've got this next question from Matt. He said that you mentioned prospecting is very effective. Do you recommend a coach or system for learning effective prospecting? If so, who? Thanks.
I absolutely do. And I think that depending on your environment, if you don't have a group or a team or someone that you would prospect with and you're just trying to go out and do it on your own, you would want to at least, at the bare minimum, get an accountability partner. And again, don't cheat on your numbers because you only cheat yourself, and have somebody that helps hold you accountable and vice versa. And if you can, I would go out and get coaching as well. I actually coach with the Mike Ferry organization really for the last 9.5 years. So they have a great base of scripts and tools. Mike Ferry gives a lot of those tools away for free. Just go to mikeferry.com and you can pull, I want to say 99% of his scripts for free on his website. And so that's a great place to start. The funny thing about those is that people invariably will go to those that site and they'll pull up some of those scripts and they'll say, I can never say half of these things. This is just not me. This is, I can't say that. And Mike Ferry would address that. He used to say, yeah, I know it's not you. That's kind of the point. You need to have something scripted and rehearsed that sounds professional, because some of the things that we do and say off the cuff don't go over very well. And so this gives you something rehearsed and professional to say to your clients. Whatever you do, if you take that and you say, well, that's not me, I just can't say that, just make sure that you're making something that you can duplicate every single time, and you're taking the guesswork out of your business, so that when you have success, you're not saying, well, I wonder if it's because I did this or that. You can't have too many variables. So if you start to experience that success, you need to be able to put your finger on it so that you can experience it over and over and over.
Very good. I like this next question. It comes in from Jim, and Jim says, please ask Carin, how did you become so smart?
That's very sweet of you. That's very humbling. Thank you. I don't know that I consider myself smart, but thank you. I think I'm very driven and well-rounded, and that's silly of me to say that I'm not smart, because I do know that I am a smart person. I make good decisions. I read a lot. I read, I've read more in the last 2 years, and I just really make the effort to read good things, and sometimes I read them more than once. And so I think that obviously definitely increases your intelligence level, and I like to talk and network and be amongst top individuals and smart people, and so I think that obviously helps as well. But you're very sweet. Thank you again.
His follow-up was, which classes have you taken, and what was the name of your best teacher?
Classes, like real estate-specific classes, I'm guessing, is what he's asking. Some of the best classes I've taken actually have been outside the sales industry. Outside the real estate industry. I would say, and it could be just because it's more recent for me, is following a lot of things that Darren Hardy says. When it comes to the real estate world, though, Mike Ferry and Tom Ferry kind of puts a more modernized spin on some of the things that Mike Ferry teaches. So I would say I definitely got a lot of foundational practice and skill, and I have my GRI, so I've done several things through real estate as well. I'm just constantly talking to people. What class did you take? What did you like about it? And not trying to stay away from the fluff and asking questions exactly like you asked. Who are the best teachers and the best content? And I would say non-industry, Darren Hardy; in industry, Mike and Tom Ferry.
Very good. Kel asks, you said that's a very good percentage of homes sold compared to listings taken. Are you doing anything special to get them sold, or is it just good pricing?
Oh, no, actually, that is a great question. I didn't really go into a lot of detail with that, so that's very perceptive. Thanks for bringing that up. We do a great deal to pre-qualify our sellers before we go out on the listing appointment. So there's a very good portion of people that we may make the decision, and mutually, or they may make the decision that we're just not a good fit for them. If we're asking our pre-qualifying questions over the phone ahead of time, and the people are very resistant, they seem like they're going to be very difficult to work with, we just won't even go out on that listing appointment. And so we're a little bit more selective in the front end of the process, which means that we go on less actual appointments, and then our conversion ratio is much higher. And we have a lot of practice. So on the team, I only have the most skilled people going on the presentations, and you kind of have to earn the right to get to that point, and we're not going to set you up for failure. So all those things combined make for a very good conversion ratio on the listing side.
Very good. Well, I know we're running long here. I'll try to wrap this up even though we have just a bajillion questions. Jay asked, what did you produce in your first year in business? What was your production in your first year? And in what year did the mega agent mindset manifest and give you the confidence to follow through to achieve these amazing goals?
Gosh, that's a great question. If I had to look back at my first year in the business, I had 2 children, one 6 and one about 3 months old. I actually started off as a loan officer, and I used that book of business. And I also prepared taxes at H&R Block because I had this mindset of if they have a house, I can help them refinance because I'm a loan officer. And if they don't have a house, I have a real estate license, so I can help them buy a house. And so I use that as an outlet to get business. So I actually did a decent amount of business. I heard some agents now doing like hundreds of deals their first year in business, so it wasn't anything of that success. I did about 18, 19 deals the first year. Second year, well, in the beginning of that first year, I did get into coaching with the Mike Ferry organization. Was able to double those figures and just grow from there. The mega agent mindset came into play, I would say, if I had to put a specific date on it, probably by the mid to end of 2011. So not too much time on that one, but just as I've grown entrepreneurially, it obviously just made sense. I've grown with the business and the brokerage and the team. So that's all just melded into one business.
Okay, it's time to wrap up. Carin, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your business plan.
Thank you guys for being a great audience. Hopefully you had some great takeaways, and here's to a tremendous 2014.